Amelia Grant stood silently in the cool morning air of Arlington National Cemetery. The white marble stones stretched endlessly before her, each one carrying the name of a soldier who had given everything. As a tomb guard, Amelia's life revolved around respect, discipline, and duty. Every step she took had a meaning. Every turn of her head was measured and exact. Her uniform was spotless, her shoes shining like glass, and her posture never wavered. People often came to watch the guards perform their duty, impressed by their precision and seriousness. What most people didn't know was that Amelia had once been part of a different world, a world filled with long hours of training, quiet observation, and extreme patience. Before she joined the Tomb Guards, Amelia had served as a sniper in the U.S. Army. It was a role that required calmness under pressure, the ability to wait for the perfect moment, and to make decisions that could change everything in a single heartbeat. Even after leaving active combat duty, the discipline of being a sniper stayed with her. She never spoke much about her past, but those who worked with her could see the depth in her eyes, the kind that only comes from years of quiet endurance. One afternoon, after her guard shift ended, Amelia sat in the small break room with a few fellow soldiers. They were talking about an article that had just been published, a story about the longest sniper shot ever recorded. One of the guards laughed and said, 3,200 meters? That's crazy. Nobody's going to beat that. Another shook his head. It's not even possible. The bullet drops too much. The wind changes too fast. You'd be lucky to even see the target. Amelia listened quietly, her hands folded around her coffee cup. She didn't say much, but something inside her sparked. For her, impossible was not a word she liked to hear. She had learned long ago that limits existed only until someone decided to test them. Later that evening, she went back to her small apartment just outside the base. On her wall hung a photo of her old sniper team, men and women who had served with honor. Some had not come back. She looked at their faces and smiled softly. "You'd probably laugh at me for even thinking about it," she whispered. "But I think I want to try." A week later, Amelia requested to join a long-range marksmanship test at a training range in Nevada. It wasn't an official competition, just a gathering of skilled shooters testing their precision at extreme distances. When she arrived, she stood out among the crowd. Most of the others were men, many of them known across the military for their sharp skills. Amelia, dressed in simple fatigues, carried her equipment quietly and set up without drawing attention. One of the instructors, a tall man with gray hair, noticed her and asked politely, "You sure you're in the right place?" "This is an advanced range." Amelia gave a small smile. "Yes, sir. I'm exactly where I need to be." She didn't boast or explain who she was. She didn't need to. Her calm confidence spoke for her. As the sun began to rise over the desert, the shooters took their positions. The challenge that day was simple to describe but nearly impossible to achieve. Hit a small steel target set at 3,200 meters. Even the most skilled marksman had failed in previous attempts. Amelia spent hours preparing. She checked her scope, cleaned her rifle, and made small adjustments to account for wind direction and elevation. Every tiny detail mattered. To her, it felt a lot like standing guard at the tomb. Patience, silence, and focus. Every move had to be done with respect. While others took their turns, most missed. Some came close, others gave up after a few tries. Amelia watched carefully, learning from each shot. She wasn't just looking at the target. She was reading the environment, the way the heat waves shimmered above the ground, the soft push of wind that shifted every few seconds. When her turn finally came, she lay down on the warm sand and took a deep breath. The desert was silent except for the faint rustle of wind. Her spotter crouched beside her, looking through a high-powered scope. "Target's up," he said quietly. "You ready?" Amelia didn't answer right away. She stared down her scope, the crosshairs perfectly steady. In that moment, she remembered the countless silent nights at Arlington. The stillness, the respect, the discipline. Guarding the tomb had taught her that patience could outlast anything. Finally, she whispered, "Ready." Her spotter gave her the wind readings, the bullet drop estimates, and the timing. Everything had to align perfectly. She took one slow breath in, and one out. Then she pulled the trigger. The sound cracked through the air, and for a few seconds nothing happened. The bullet traveled for nearly 10 seconds, an eternity for a sniper. Amelia didn't blink. She waited, calm and still. Then faintly across the vast open range came the metallic ping of the bullet striking steel. The spotter lifted his head, his eyes wide. "You hit it," he whispered. "You actually hit it." Amelia allowed herself a small, quiet smile. Around her, people began to murmur in disbelief. A few came over to confirm the shot using rangefinders and cameras. There was no mistake. The impossible had just been done. But Amelia didn't celebrate loudly. She simply stood, brushed the dust from her knees, and nodded respectfully to the instructors. "Thank you for letting me try," she said softly. That evening, as the sun set behind the Nevada mountains, Amelia sat alone beside her rifle, watching the light fade into orange and gold. For her, it wasn't about records or recognition. It was about proving something deeper, that discipline, patience, and respect could carry a person further than anyone imagined. She thought again of the soldiers she guarded every day, those who had given everything without asking for fame. She smiled faintly and whispered to herself, "That one was for you." And in that quiet desert evening, Amelia Grant, the tomb guard who refused to believe in the word impossible, had just written her own chapter of quiet history. The next morning the desert was calm again, but something in the air felt different. Word about Amelia's incredible shot had spread quietly across the range. People were still talking about it, not with jealousy but with disbelief. Some thought it was luck, others said it was pure skill. Amelia didn't argue with anyone. She just smiled politely and went back to cleaning her rifle, treating the weapon with the same respect she showed when guarding the tomb. Her spotter, Sergeant Miller, sat beside her with a cup of coffee. "You know," he said with a grin, "I've been in the Army 15 years and I've never seen anyone pull off what you did yesterday. You made the impossible look peaceful." Amelia looked up at him. "It's never about showing off," she replied. "It's about doing something with full focus and respect. That's what I learned at the tomb. Every small step matters." Later that day, a few senior officers visited the range to see the famous shot themselves. They examined the data, measured the distance again, and confirmed what everyone had been whispering. Amelia's shot had been clean, precise, and real. It wasn't luck. It was skill, patience, and an understanding of nature's rhythm. But Amelia wasn't done. She had hit the target once, but she wanted to understand every detail of how and why it worked. She returned to the same position, lying flat on the sand, and began to take notes. She studied the wind changes, the humidity, the temperature, and how all those tiny details could shift a bullet's path. The desert was quiet except for the sound of her pencil scratching on paper. Sergeant Miller watched her work and shook his head. "You're not satisfied, are you?" he asked. Amelia smiled faintly. "I'm not chasing records, Miller. I'm chasing understanding." As the sun climbed higher, the air shimmered with heat. Most of the other shooters took breaks, but Amelia stayed, testing her aim again and again. Not at the far target this time, but at smaller ones closer by, training her focus. Each shot was measured, calm, and deliberate. Her breathing stayed slow and even. She could wait for minutes before pulling the trigger. In between, a young recruit approached her shyly. "Ma'am, how do you stay so calm when everyone's watching?" he asked. Amelia turned to him kindly. "I don't think about who's watching," she said. "I think about what I'm doing. When you give full respect to what's in front of you, the noise around you disappears." Her words stayed with the recruit long after. Many who met Amelia that week noticed something unusual about her. She wasn't loud, she wasn't competitive, but she had a quiet kind of power, the kind that made people listen without her having to raise her voice. That evening, a small ceremony was held at the range to recognize the record shot. Everyone expected Amelia to give a speech, but she simply thanked the instructors and her spotter, saying, "This wasn't my achievement alone. It was a team effort, and a reminder that patience is stronger than pride." When the ceremony ended, one of the senior officers, Colonel Reese, approached her privately. "You've done something remarkable, Grant," he said. "The kind of precision you showed doesn't come from skill alone. It comes from discipline of the heart, the kind you can't teach in training manuals." Amelia nodded humbly. "Discipline is like breathing, sir. You don't think about it. You live it." Colonel Reese looked at her thoughtfully. "You know, people are going to talk about this for a long time. But I think your real strength isn't that shot. It's how you carry yourself after it." That night, Amelia sat by her tent under the stars. The desert sky was endless and silent, much like the space she guarded at Arlington. She thought about her fallen brothers and sisters, the ones she saluted every morning and evening. She whispered softly to the wind, "I hope I've honored you." The following days at the range brought more attention. A team from the military's marksmanship division arrived to study her technique. They asked her questions about breathing, focus, and calculation. Amelia answered every question with patience, explaining that her secret wasn't a trick, but it was a mindset. "When I guard the tomb," she told them, "I move the same way every day for hours without a mistake. That discipline trains your body to be steady. When I take a shot, it's the same discipline. One heartbeat, one breath, one purpose." Her words impressed the team so much that they asked if she would consider training new recruits in focus and control. Amelia agreed on one condition, that the lessons wouldn't just be about shooting. It should be about patience and honor, she said. Because without those, skill means nothing. While all this was happening, journalists began writing about the tomb guard sniper. Articles appeared online with headlines calling her the most disciplined shot in military history. Reporters wanted interviews. Television shows asked for appearances, but Amelia refused them all. "The focus should stay on the soldiers," she told her commander. "Not on me." Instead, she quietly returned to Arlington after the training event ended. When she walked her first guard shift again, a few visitors recognized her and whispered her name, but she never looked their way. Her steps were slow, precise, and silent. Her face showed no pride, only respect. As the moonlight reflected off the marble of the tomb, Amelia felt a deep sense of peace. She had proven something to the world, that patience could defeat doubt. But for her, the real victory wasn't the record shot. It was returning to this sacred ground where every movement was a promise kept. The other guards welcomed her back with quiet smiles. "Heard about what you did," one of them said softly. "We're proud of you." Amelia only replied, "Thank you. But I'm just continuing what we all do, standing still when the world is noisy." In that stillness, she felt the same calm she had felt before taking her shot. The same focus, the same respect, and though the world might remember her for hitting a target 200 meters away, Amelia knew her real target had always been something much closer. The strength to stay humble, disciplined and true to her duty, no matter how far her story reached. The next few weeks passed quietly for Amelia Grant. Back at Arlington National Cemetery, the rhythm of her days returned to its sacred pattern. The sound of her boots on the marble echoed through the air as she marched with perfect precision before the tomb of the unknown soldier. Tourists came and went, whispering to one another, sometimes recognizing her as the soldier who made the impossible shot. But Amelia didn't react. Her focus never shifted from the duty she had sworn to uphold. For her, every step still carried the same weight. The world might remember her as a record-breaking sniper, but in her heart she was still a guard, a protector of silence. Respect and remembrance. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the white stones, her commanding officer approached her. "Grant," he said softly, "we've been getting letters from soldiers across the country. Your stories inspired a lot of people." Amelia nodded. "That means a lot, sir. But I hope they remember that discipline and patience matter more than breaking records." The officer smiled. "That's exactly what they're remembering." After her shift ended, Amelia sat alone on a bench overlooking the cemetery. The evening breeze was gentle and the flag fluttered softly in the distance. She closed her eyes and thought about everything that had happened since that day in Nevada. The shot, the disbelief, the praise, it all felt far away now. What stayed close was the lesson she had learned long before she ever picked up a rifle. Real strength lives in quiet dedication. A few days later, she received an invitation from the military academy to speak to a new class of recruits. At first, she hesitated. She wasn't used to speaking in front of crowds. Her comfort was in silence and precision, but after some thought, she accepted. She realized her story wasn't about glory. It was about what patience and honor could achieve when no one was watching. When the day came, she stood on the stage in front of hundreds of young faces. Many of them had already heard about her record shot, and they expected to hear tales of excitement and fame. Instead, Amelia spoke calmly and simply. "I'm not here to tell you how to shoot," she began. "I'm here to tell you that the most powerful thing a soldier can have is self-control. Whether you're standing guard in silence or facing a challenge that seems impossible, It's your discipline that will guide you. She paused for a moment, letting her words sink in. When I was guarding the tomb, I learned that respect doesn't make noise. It's quiet. It's steady. And that's the same kind of focus I used when I took that shot. The distance didn't matter. What mattered was believing that patience could reach further than doubt. The room stayed silent. Every recruit listened closely. Some even looked emotional, touched by her humility and strength. Amelia continued, sharing small lessons she had learned over the years about responsibility, calmness under pressure, and finding peace in stillness. After the talk, a young cadet approached her. "Ma'am," he said, "I used to think being a soldier meant being the loudest or the toughest. But now I understand it's about being the most disciplined." Amelia smiled gently. "That's right. True courage isn't loud, it's steady." As she left the academy that day, she felt a deep sense of purpose. Her story had reached people not because of the record she set, but because of the example she lived by. She had shown that strength doesn't always roar. It can stand silent and unshaken. Months passed and Amelia continued her service. She often trained younger guards, teaching them the value of precision and patience. Many admired her calmness and ability to stay centered no matter the situation. Her presence had a way of quieting the noise around her, reminding others that respect could be more powerful than pride. One afternoon, while resting in the small guardhouse, she received a letter from Sergeant Miller, her old spotter from the Nevada range. It was handwritten and simple. "Grant, I still remember that day in the desert. Everyone called it impossible. But when you pulled the trigger, I understood something. You didn't beat the distance, you understood it. You listened to the wind, the silence, and your own heart. That's what made the shot perfect. I wanted to thank you for teaching me that lesson." Amelia smiled as she folded the letter neatly. She placed it in her locker beside a small medal and a photo of her sniper team. These weren't trophies to her, they were reminders. Each one represented people, patience, and moments of quiet courage. One evening, a light rain began to fall over Arlington. The ceremony continued as always. The guards never stopped, no matter the weather. Visitors stood under umbrellas, watching in awe as Amelia marched through the rain. Her uniform soaked, but her movements flawless. A small child in the crowd tugged on his father's sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, that's the soldier who did the impossible, right?" The father nodded. "Yes, son. She's the one." Amelia heard the whisper, but she didn't smile or react. Her face remained calm, her focus unwavering. Because in that moment she wasn't a record holder or a hero. She was a guardian of something far greater. When her shift ended, she stood at the edge of the marble steps and looked at the tomb one more time. The words engraved there reminded her of why she served. "Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God." She took a slow breath and whispered softly, "This is where real honor lives. In silence, in service, in never giving up." As the rain continued to fall, Amelia turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing through the quiet night. Her legend would continue to inspire others, but she would never chase recognition. For her, the greatest victory was knowing she had done her duty, with respect, patience, and heart. Years later, when new soldiers joined the tomb guard, instructors would tell them her story. Not as a tale of fame, but as a lesson in character. They would say, "Remember Amelia Grant, the tomb guard who taught the world that discipline can make the impossible possible." And somewhere in the hearts of those who listened, a quiet truth would live on. Sometimes the strongest heroes are the ones who never seek attention. They just do what's right, one calm breath at a time.